Okay. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Metaphysical Insights. My guests this year are Case. This year, okay. This is how
It is a
this
new
is
year.
going to be going. This weekend, Casey Goodwin and Jay Verburg. I didn't list all of the things they're part of because the list is too long to be able to put out on any kind of an informational flyer. Let's see, there's Oregon Paranormal, there's the Permanence, there's the League of Extrasensory Gentlemen, there's several other items on that list, and hopefully we'll talk about a few of those and a few other things tonight. So,
Yes.
Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you. Good to see you.
Yeah, these guys have been friends of mine for quite a while now, and so I'm looking forward to actually getting a chance to see them. With COVID, we don't get together these days.
I know. It sucks, but I'll take it.
Yeah.
Take what we can get.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of put a damper on any investigations you've been doing too.
Yes.
Zero investigations.
Yeah. Are you getting calls for them?
Oh yeah, we're getting inundated with calls, emails, Facebook messages, things on Twitter. But we have to just tell them. I mean, obviously we're still consulting and we're still talking with people and everything, but we can't. We don't want to put anybody in jeopardy. We don't want to put the clients in jeopardy or our researchers. So it's just playing it safe right now and kind of laying low.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it makes sense. I think that's what every reputable group is doing. I see a few things on Facebook here and there that I'm not sure if people are paying attention or not, but sounds smart.
Yeah, and especially when it comes to going into someone's home, that puts a lot of constraints on your ability to properly research a location.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because we don't have access to, we can't look up tax documents and go to the records departments and all that stuff right now. So really, it's just kind of best to just put things on hold.
Yeah. Now, some of those documents in some counties would be online, aren't they?
Yeah, some. I kind of like going into the buildings though and digging through the stuff. It's easier and it's cheaper. So a lot of times you have to pay those online fees, and they're kind of ridiculous.
Oh, I didn't think about online fees. We've got Michael White here logging in.
What?
Michael!
Yeah.
How you doing, Michael?
Good to see you too. But I know what you mean. I'm the old-fashioned historian. I like card catalogs and books and stacks of old documents and microfiche. My eyes don't like that anymore, but
Gosh.
Oh, well, before I forget, Vivian Powell says to send you to her love.
Thank you. And Vivian, we were just talking about you. I'm so grateful, and I was going to reach out to you. I'm not on Facebook much at all anymore, but I at least asked William to please send my gratitudes for your assistance when I was doing the wildland fires this summer. So thank you.
Yeah, she's on a competing show right now. I'm having a bit of a competition with another friend of mine in England. His show is on live right now as well, and
we should call in.
Pardon me? Yeah.
We should call in.
Oh, that's a good idea. I'm trying to think. I don't know how to do it. Otherwise, we could. Because she's a guest on it, it would be a riot.
That'd be fun.
That would be fun.
Yeah, we could hijack both shows. But David's a good guy. He's a good friend too. Now, Jay, you live in a haunted hotel.
That's what they say.
What's it like?
For the most part, it's actually amazingly quiet. It's kind of, when you spend a lot of time around trucks and forklifts, you start to tune out even the reverse alarms on equipment like that. It's amazingly quiet, given that in your day-to-day life, as noises, creaks, and I shouldn't say it's necessarily quiet, but it gives you the ability to also understand a building. So even noises and sounds and things that you hear, you can discern between something that's naturally commonly occurring versus something that's out of the ordinary, which has actually been kind of cool.
I like that, because your building is what? It's about 85 years old?
It's coming up, well, in 24, it'll be 100 years old.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so it you know, most buildings that age would have a few creaks and groans of their own.
Yes. Yes, they do, especially when the storms pick up. We're right to the west of me is the ocean, and when the storms come through, everything makes noises.
That's my favorite time to be over at the coast.
Oh, yes.
Mm-hmm. Now, do you want to plug the place?
Oh, yeah. Well, so I'm out here at the Old Wheeler Hotel. Katie owns the hotel, my girlfriend, and she's had it she's going on 11 years now. And it's a small, it's kind of a boutique hotel, built in 1924, completed in 1924. It used to be an old hospital, the Reinhardt Clinic. It was a pain treatment facility. A couple times it's been shut down for 8 to 10 years in its lifespan. But over the past 11 years, Katie has taken it from 4 rooms to 9 rooms. It's down here on the North Oregon coast, just south of Astoria. It's a beautiful spot to live. Lots of Native American history, a lot of Lewis and Clark history, a lot of Hudson Bay Trading Company history. So some very cool things going on out here.
Excellent. Yeah, I like shameless promotions. That's part of the purpose of the show, you know, give people a chance. What are you guys working on right now? I know you've got a couple projects going on.
I'm working on my gut. I've been working on that for months, being a hotel during COVID. I've got plenty of time to eat.
I like that.
We got quite a bit going on. I mean, well, obviously, without investigations kind of holding us back right now, it gives us a little bit more time to kind of work on the documentary, work on aspects of the documentary we haven't been able to really focus on. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by that is just like, essentially it's just, you know, doing a little bit more research on the hotel. So that's the side that Jay's doing. Working on, you know, different types of editing techniques. We've been able to do a little bit of filming here and there when our schedules allow for it. But what's nice is because of COVID, it's really let us take our time and really kind of dial in some things that we've been having issues with, because, you know, when we started this, we weren't filmmakers.
Right.
And so it was a big learning curve. And now we're getting to a point where we're not having to redo a shot like 40 different times in a day. We usually get it down by like the second or third try. And a lot of it is, you know, really getting to know the cameras that we're working with, understanding lighting and how that plays into a scene. So that's kind of really what we've been doing, aside from, you know, just, you know, our daily work schedules. And, you know, I've been working from home since almost 11 months now.
Wow.
And so I get to see, you know, the inner workings of the homeschooling process with my wife and our kids. And I go to bed and I wake up in my office every day. So that's fun.
Yeah, it's going to be strange for you to go actually back into the office.
If you ever go back now.
Yeah, I don't know. Originally, they were talking about July. But at this point, there's really no set date on when we're going back. And kind of another cool thing that happened during the whole COVID thing was our company wasn't really set up for digital. We didn't have like a digital process to keep the engine going.
Okay.
So in March, right before they set up our lockdown, me and a couple other people in the company were kind of tasked with putting together a program that would help keep everybody working, man, that sun behind me is really bright.
It actually takes the attention off your face, which is actually really
good. So with that, we were able to make the company a remote company. So maybe 2 or 3 people since COVID started have been working in the office, while the other 150 of us have been working from home.
Wow.
And because of that, we've proven to the vice president, the president of the company, that we can obviously run the company from our homes without issue. Some of the things that we've had to deal with were like internet issues with certain areas where some of the employees were and everything like that. But because it's been such a success, the higher ups in the company don't look down at employees working from home now, because we obviously have proven that it can be done and we can be very productive. So who knows where we're going back at this point.
Fantastic. Well, I mean, from what I understand, you guys have had some big projects come to life during this time. Film projects or something.
Yeah. So for the people who don't know, I work for a comic book publishing company in Milwaukee called Dark Horse Comics, and like all the other comic book companies worldwide, the comic industry took a huge hit back at the end of March, going into April and June, to the point where it was very uncertain for so many publishers, including us. And a lot of our vendors were shutting their doors, and a lot of them didn't reopen. A lot of our distribution facilities were shut down. And it really kind of made a lot of the publishing companies kind of take a step back and kind of re-examine, how we were going to survive.
Mm-hmm.
And then, things kind of took a turn for the better. And we found out that even though we put like 800 or 900 of our books on hiatus for 2020, what we found out was our internet sales on all of our backlogged or our backlist single issue comics and our trades and our hardcovers, the sales were through the roof. So people were ordering online, having things delivered. So our sales were a little bit down, but in comparison to previous years, it wasn't as bad as we thought, as we were kind of weathering this weird storm. And, I think that us and all of the other companies are a little bit stronger now because of what we all had to kind of go through.
Right. Excellent. I'm glad to hear it. It's nice to know. Yeah, I bet you are. Yeah, so's the rest of your family. That gives a little bit of hope with all this, because I mean, you've got a lot of people there, but it's still a local company. And so between we've got a couple comic book shops that that Dark Horse owns throughout the Portland area. We have one at the Universal City Walk in Hollywood, and then we've also got our production house down in California for the movie end and the TV show end of things. And man, COVID, kind of put the brakes on productions for a while, but then everything kind of slowly started picking up, and we're kind of back to where we were originally. And then, I think, was it in July or August, we released our biggest series. It was a season 2 on Netflix called Umbrella Academy. And that just was,
never heard of it.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, all being said, it was a pretty good year for us.
Excellent. I'm glad.
Yeah.
And I have heard of Umbrella Academy, and I don't, I'm pretty much out of the loop. I don't have Netflix and stuff. So if I've heard about it, it's a pretty big show. I had no idea it was yours.
It's ridiculous how big that I mean, it went from this, small little comic about 12 years ago to just this big juggernaut of a series. And then it became a live action TV show. So it's kind of crazy how that kind of works out.
Yeah, I like it. Now, do you have any problems with ghosts showing up at any of these places when you're doing it?
Always. Lots of orbs.
Okay.
But no ghosts. That I know of.
Okay. These two, for people who don't know, whenever I have technical questions or questions about a lot of things in paranormal, they're my go-tos. And especially for, okay, what could it be? What these guys, they know that there are paranormal beings. They've had their own, you've got your own experiences, but you know how to go through and figure out, okay, well, quit sniffing glue and maybe you won't be hallucinating dragons flying through your living room anymore. Or, little things.
Right. Yeah, sniffing glue is a big red flag in our field.
Yes.
But that's what's really cool about what we do is it's not just us with Oregon Paranormal, because Jay came on about 3 or 4 years ago.
Gosh, it's been more than that. Yeah.
What was that?
It's been more than that. It's almost like 5, 6, maybe.
Right, because I've helped with an investigation or two that you were part of, and it's been a while.
Yeah. So Jay started out as an outside consultant for historical work, and then we brought him in. He's director of historical research, but then we have this array of outside consultants. You're William, obviously you're an outside consultant when it comes to psychical work and all that stuff, and we've got Michael White from Paranormal Research and Investigations. And what's cool about Michael is he brings in this just crazy technical, analytical side that I love crunching data and looking at all that stuff. But then there's Michael,
right?
And Michael will find that needle in the haystack. And then we've got Neil McNeil, who brings the parapsychological end of things to the mix. Right. And then we've got Ben Robison, who brings, a technical background and just the passion for the field and everything. And what's cool is we can all kind of bounce ideas off of each other. And, if we're kind of hitting a wall with an investigation or a particular part of the case study, we can go to one of them because we know that obviously there are going to be times where there are things that aren't in our wheelhouse. And that's when we kind of branch out.
Hey, Randy, how you doing, buddy? It's good when you have people who have the same passion, but also have a different skill set to be able to not only introduce new methods and new ways of investigating or researching, but also be able to skew or provide a different thought process into something that you wouldn't even initially have had an idea to even consider.
Right.
So that's been very important.
Plus, it's a great group of people. Everybody gets along. Everybody's friends. And, you know how to bounce off of each other and have fun at the same time you're being serious in the work you're doing.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people who think a big part of an investigation has to be enjoying the work and having fun and being in a normal setting, having laughter, having jokes, whatever, with recorders and stuff going, because that can be a time when entities actually they feel happy and comfortable and share and want to chip in, and they get a lot of their best information and evidence then.
Well, that was actually a really big challenge for me when my very first investigation with Casey and Ben was at a private residence. And, midway through the night, they're joking and laughing. And we're kind of on this little mini break where we're switching roles and responsibilities. And being my first in-home investigation of a private residence, I was kind of on edge to the fact of, hey, we have a responsibility here. The client was actually participating with us. And I was thinking, oh my gosh, we don't want to show them any disrespect, or this is serious work here right now, guys. What are we doing? But that was my first intro into the realization that, number one, even you as an investigator has to have a moment of letting down, relaxing, communicating with other people. You don't want to make it. In fact, having the homeowner with us at the time, it was important to show them this isn't a fear-based investigation. This is not something that you need to necessarily watch everything that you're doing at any one given time. But at the same time, it wasn't until years of being involved with investigations that you realize these are key moments in investigation where you actually can be more open to the potential of communication because everything has been lightened, the mood has relaxed, which oftentimes can lead to the possibility of getting potential evidence, some data to gather that you wouldn't have otherwise gotten.
Yeah, Jay really nailed it there. Because, without lightening the mood, it can be very, very boring. I mean, it's like getting a root canal while you're doing your taxes while watching paint dry. It can be very excruciating sometimes because, we don't operate like a lot of other groups. We tend to only do 2 investigations, maybe 3 investigations a year. And that's because each case can take anywhere from 6 to 8 months. And if we're doing a bunch of investigations, every week or every weekend or whatnot, we're not able to give each client 100% of our time. But with taking all of that time on a single case study, it can get very daunting. So bringing in some of that laughter and that levity really helps keep our and it really helps keep things going without getting stale.
Yeah, and of course there is a time and a place for everything. In the middle of an experiment, you're not going to be joking and fooling around. There's protocols, but there are those moments where you just need to let down, relax, be yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Now, one of the questions I think would be interesting is to see how it all fits together, because you guys are very thorough, and the research pieces that you do and all of this. Do you have an example of a case where how you've started out, you've gone through these months, you've done all this kind of research with everything from property records to history to everything else you guys do, plus the research in the house, the investigation parts, the evidence, the review, and how it all fits together, and pieces from here and here and here and here have put together this whole puzzle or this whole picture that you can then present to the client?
Yeah. We and this was actually about 6 or 7 years before we even met Jay, but we were brought in to a case study in Dallas, Oregon. It was this just awesome Victorian house, about 100 and I think at the time it was about 105 years old. And it was it was super cool. It was right across the street from this really old church. And it had this giant bell tower, and like every hour that bell would chime. But the clients called us in because they were experiencing a lot of weird stuff. They were hearing voices. They're like doors closing, footsteps, and they felt really uneasy in the upstairs portion of their house. And so they called us in, and one of the things was that when their daughter had been living in the house, they said, "Oh, well, she used to play with the Ouija board. And she used to do it in this closet in this particular room." And I've never put stock into Ouija boards. I collect them. I've used them. They don't work for me. I think they're just, fun little parlor tricks. So I didn't put too much stock into that, but we showed up to the the walkthrough and the interview process, and the clients, they cooked us this amazing dinner. And as we're sitting down to have dinner, we've got our audio recorder rolling, we've got a camera rolling, so that we can kind of capture the interview. And as we're talking with the clients, asking them all these different personal questions that are part of our protocol, we're hearing stuff upstairs, and we were the only people in the house at the time. The kids are all grown up. They've moved out of the house. So it was just the client and her husband and Scott and I.
Mhm.
And meanwhile, we're hearing doors closing upstairs. We're hearing footsteps as almost as if someone's pacing upstairs. All the while, the audio recorder is picking up all of that stuff. One of the claims was that they were hearing this little girl. And one of her fears was that one night she was going to wake up, she was going to hear the little girl, or she was going to go around a corner, she's going to see a little girl. But then she also had that weird fear of whatever negative feelings she was getting upstairs.
Mhm.
So fast forward to the investigation. We show up, we're setting up equipment. We had captured the little girl on audio the night we were there for the initial walkthrough and dinner and interview and all that stuff. So there was a little bit of confirmation that there was something going on, but we still weren't sure what.
Right.
And so as the night progresses, just a myriad of activity that I've never experienced at one location. And it was like everywhere. I mean, everything was happening in real time. And a lot of times, almost 90% of the time when you're doing a case study, the activity's happening, but we're not aware of it until we're playing back stuff.
Right.
But in this case, we're hearing the footsteps, we're hearing, running around upstairs. We're hearing the sound of what sound like rustling fabric.
Mhm.
And long story short, when we finally went through all the data, we were able to pick some pieces from that investigation and from what we had collected and presented it to the clients. We had the little girl's voice on several different audio devices answering questions. We also had a male figure talking.
Mhm.
Through historical research, we found out that the little girl did pass away in the house. I can't remember the exact details, but she did get sick. She did pass away in the home. But the gentleman was kind of a weird thing. We couldn't find any history on him. About 3 or 4 weeks after we did the investigation, they had a yard sale or a garage sale, whatnot, and this old man stops by. And he's like, I used to live here. My dad built the second story on the house. And it was like his crowning achievement. It was one of the biggest accomplishments he'd ever done as far as construction had gone. And so he was very proud of it. So the only thing that we could really construe from that was that the entity upstairs was possibly the father of the gentleman that showed up to kind of talk with the homeowners.
Right.
As far as the negative aspect, I think it was just, him being territorial or protective of the little girl in the house and the attention she was getting from not only, the investigators that were there, but also the homeowners and everything. But, after we were done with the investigation, we were able to present everything we found. One, it was, you could see the pressure lift off the clients, like, oh, okay, there's really nothing we should be worried about now. We obviously cleared up the fact that they're not crazy, because a lot of times the clients call and they always say, you're gonna think I'm crazy, but, or this is gonna sound crazy, but. So being able to provide them with that information to back up their stories and their experiences was great. And every once in a while we get an email or a message on Facebook saying, hey, we heard the girl, blah, blah, blah. They try to buy a little trinket every holiday that they present to the little girl as kind of her thing.
Right.
Which is really cool. And they no longer have a weird negative feeling upstairs. So it was kind of like a perfect storm where, everything kind of fit together in that weird little puzzle that we had.
Yeah. And what's interesting about these stories is that, especially when you're doing historical research, is you have to realize you're putting a human experience through someone else's human perception as to what you believe is going on. And so all of these scenarios could be absolutely false. But what's key and important here, in fact, oftentimes you'll find that your client just the fact that they have a recognition that they're not crazy. And then once you calmly talk to them about these scenarios, you can say, they're saying, yeah, I'm terrified to be here. Okay, well, let's talk about that. Why are you terrified? Has anything harmed you? Well, no. Have you seen anything? Well, no. And once you walk through these simple, basic question and answer sort of scenarios, you kind of start to realize, hold on a second, I don't necessarily need to be afraid. And as you see, people tend to oftentimes have a relationship with what they believe to be experiencing.
Right.
And oftentimes you get people that go, oh, well, that's just weird that people have experiences or that they have this relationship with something that is dead. Heck, that's what religions are about, is having a relationship with something that's past and that they continue to honor. So, with many of these things, there's a time and a place. It's very rare that you have an investigation that encompasses all aspects of what we deem to be a solid investigation: psychical research, historical research, all of these different things. It's pretty rare that you actually find a location that would encompass each one of these separate individual pieces. In fact, another good example is the investigation we had. It was a home that was built in the 80s, so it didn't have a long history. I believe it only had one previous owner. It used to be farmland. What it was before then, I don't know. But the house was completely surrounded by care facilities and retirement homes, or retirement community cared facilities. So it's like, oh my gosh. Okay, so if we're looking for people, first of all, it's pretty rare on a farmland that you're going to have somebody that loved the area, the house, the building, to want to stay in a location after their physical transition. So if you're looking for someone who's passed, oh my gosh, you're surrounded by hundreds of potential deaths that have happened since the 80s.
Right.
So it's kind of useless to even do historical research at that point. Let's move on to other forms of experimentation.
And a lot of times historical research can hinder an investigation, case study, because we may be going down a historical path that has nothing to do with the activity that we're there to investigate.
No.
So be very careful about that.
Well, I could see, though, even in a case like you're talking about, where even though some of the history could still be valid, because there could be something from that land that predated, it could be Native American, or it could even have been earlier settlers, pioneers.
Absolutely.
Or, somebody still, I've run across situations where, the entity is basically guarding is still from the revenuers, something like that. But I also find that once you explain, so often the client's fear is the unknown.
Right.
And once you can take away that unknown, they're fine, because they no longer need to get rid of whatever is there or whatever. And sometimes you can help them with things like, no, you've got a carbon monoxide leak, or get your radon gas check, and
or a medical condition. I mean, Ben Robison, one of our really good friends, who is a colleague and he had a case where the person who was experiencing all of this weird phenomena was the only one in the house that was experiencing it. And he suggested going and seeing a doctor. Well, she had gone and done a physical, and turned out she had a brain tumor that was, when it was active, I guess, or swollen, it was causing hallucinations.
Right.
And when she started getting treated for it, all of those weird things she was experiencing started to subside. And he was able to save her life in the process by getting her to go and see a medical professional. I guess the doctor had said she would have not made it through the year had she not gone in and started treating what she did, because it had advanced so far. So there's so many things that, and you talk about, like, misconceptions that you see in TV shows and in movies, and then you've got what we do, and there are so many things that we do that don't see the light of day on TV shows.
Uh-huh.
It's eye-opening. If somebody was to come in and shadow an investigative group during a full-scale case study, and I'm not talking just going in for doing an investigation for 8 hours or whatnot, but like a full 8-month study of a location, they would walk away, regardless of them being a skeptic or not, they would walk away with kind of a new view of what it is that some groups are doing out there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, exactly. And part of what's interesting for me anyway, when you can get a bunch of groups together, is you get the chance to broaden each other's ideas.
Yeah.
And how things work. That's one of the things that I like about some of the conferences and that kind of thing. You may or may not always agree with everything, but that doesn't matter.
Hey there, Pete. Speaking of people who put on events, we've got Pete.
Yeah,
but no, it's a great opportunity to get together with people to share information. You have to remember that whatever you're experiencing through your perceptions. So it's often good. I think of it or relate it to artwork. I could look at a piece of artwork and say, that is an absolute piece of shit. And someone else, one of you guys, could look at it and say, that is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. It's a different perspective. It's a different perception on things that needs to be shared to realize I shouldn't look at things so simply as the way I'm perceiving it.
To be fair, Jay, I spent hours on that drawing. And for you to say
Dorothy's
that,
from Sumter. Hey, Dorothy, how you doing?
Yeah. Oh, so you guys are able to see these even before I...
Yeah.
Yeah,
I've got the little chat window open. I just don't have a way to chat back. Sorry, guys, but I am reading them.
Oh, speaking of Sumter, dude, Jay, we got to get back there.
I know.
I want to go back too.
I heard the Discovery Channel was tarnishing Ghost Mine's name in press releases. Now that
Discovery Channel tarnishing what?
I know. Well, they've got their Gold Rush show out there now, and one of the miners was saying things about us, but whatever. Hollywood.
For those of you who don't know, Jay was he was a greenhorn on Ghost Mine.
Yes, I was a greenhorn miner, which meant I didn't know shit. I didn't know what I was doing.
You got to blow things up, though.
Yes, I did get to blow stuff up, and that was pretty epic.
Yeah, and you got away without blowing yourself up, so that was pretty cool.
Yeah,
that's how we got to meet Jay, was through Ghost Mine and all that stuff.
Right. Yeah, I think didn't Ben know you before, or?
Yeah, I had met Ben prior to the show. In fact, it was Ben, I believe, that talked to you. So after my first season of filming, William invited me out to the second annual Oregon Ghost Conference.
Right.
And I've been stuck with you guys ever since.
It's when you guys all kind of rolled in with your sunglasses on. And
That's right. I still haven't gotten my big paycheck for my special engagement, but hey.
I hear it's in the mail.
Oh.
Yeah. I'm going to say, talk to the bookkeeper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Dorothy says, yes, do please come back. I miss Sumter. I think about Sumter all the time. In fact, I'm out here on the North Oregon coast in a small community where I'm a firefighter out here. One of our firefighters actually does own a cabin across the street from the dredge. So he goes out there quite a bit. And I'm thinking, you know what I should do is go out to Sumter and get their fire department up and running again. I could be working at the fire department in Sumter.
I have a word of advice for you when you do that. Don't put the hoses under the wooden sidewalks this time.
No, never under the. And for those that didn't watch the show or don't know Sumter's history, the town caught fire. I believe it was 1917. I can't remember. It's been a while. But they stored all of the fire hoses underneath the boardwalk streets. And so when the boardwalk streets caught on fire, they couldn't get to the fire hoses.
Hmm. So it's amazing how short-sighted people can be occasionally. We think there's this great idea, and then it doesn't quite work. I've done classes out there a few times, and I'd love to go do another one.
Yeah,
it's so beautiful out there.
Some great people out there, and some interesting minds, and I haven't been in any of them. I get nervous in holes in the ground unless I know they're okay to be in. And I like guides and electric lights on it when I'm going into a cave or something.
And Dorothy is saying Granite needs a good fire department too. Granite's a great little community just outside of Sumter. Oh, both those towns are just forever seared in my heart. I miss them.
Yep. I think Granite was where I felt like I was being watched.
That might have been the locals out there.
The locals are probably watching you.
Pardon me?
The locals are probably watching you.
That's what I meant. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yes. Oh, Dorothy says she'll help us come back too. So I got to go. See you guys. Click.
Oh, great. And Anna's watching from England.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
Where in England, do you know?
Leeds. She's a friend of mine. Mm-hmm.
Okay, I went through Leeds on the train from London. We stopped in Leeds for a while, looked at the college there, and headed on up to Edinburgh. But I miss it. I want to go back. The damn COVID's keeping us away.
I know.
I just want to go in general.
Yeah,
never been.
But that's the team she's on. They're friends of mine, and I got to go exploring some interesting places with them, including where Anna works. So, which is a library. You would be impressed with that, Jay, for the historical research.
Yes.
Hey, I read too. I'd be impressed.
That's true. They
but these are pictures, Casey. That's not reading.
Damn it.
Actually, these guys are so talented in so many different ways. It's great. Now, because of backgrounds, Casey, I can actually see a little bit more with you, how you've branched into some of what you do with with the photography and the videography and scenes, because you're a talented artist. You work in the comic book industry in a sense. There is that element of the industry. But Jay, you do a lot of the historical research. Yeah. And that isn't in your background particularly.
No.
And how did you guys fall into these things, and you like that aspect of it?
Well, I mean, for me, the historical passion predates Ghost Mine, which is one of the reasons why I took the job as a miner out there, because I knew the history. I was always, and specifically Western history. And I saw Anna said, if you guys ever come back, she'd be happy to show us around. Thank you, Anna. If I ever do come back, I'll definitely hit you up. One of the nice things about American Western history is that it's so young. It's easy to research. It's so much of it has been documented. I mean, sure, there's tons that are not documented, but the research. But given that it's so young, it's disappearing so fast. You know, over in Europe, you've got structures that have been around for hundreds and hundreds of years, and American Western history, you've got areas, you've had entire towns with thousands of people that are about 100 years old that are completely disappearing. There's almost no sign of them whatsoever, and that's always fascinated me. But I can't imagine trying to do the historical research in England, where you do have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years going back. Not only are you looking for a needle in a haystack, but you've got 10 needles in that haystack, and you're not sure which one's the one you're supposed to find. But so having that historical passion for the Western history is what led me to Sumter, which got me involved with the paranormal community. And now realizing that I could utilize that passion for history to incorporate into the paranormal research, that's pretty much what solidified me there.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And, you know, you're right. I love the ancient history. The new stuff is interesting to a degree, but I'm the happiest when I'm crawling over a Neolithic burial mound or some chamber or something. And when I was in Leeds with Anna and her team, there's an old abbey that we went to explore. One of my friends, Jason, is now working with the abbey ruins in the museum. We were there after couldn't get into anything at the point, but the library she works in is 18th century.
Yeah.
And it's an active subscription library.
And some of the history is beyond fathom. You can't wrap your mind around it sometimes. We went up to a little place called Kilmartin up in Scotland, where they had burial cairns, standing stones that are dated to about 5,500 years ago. It's some of the oldest prehistoric monuments that came over from, I'm probably going to piss someone off in England. Sorry, guys. That came over from Ireland. That's beyond even imagining. We think, oh gosh, look at the time of Jesus. That was only 2,000 years ago. They've got these stones and this history that dates back 5,500 years ago. How they even know that? It's just beyond understanding sometimes.
Yeah. No, I've been to places that were actually Mesolithic, not just Neolithic, but Mesolithic. Yeah. And sometimes it's really hard to tell because you're in a rocky area, and it's often kind of hard to tell what's the village site and what isn't, especially a place like Dartmoor.
I've got you. I've been to the La Brea tar pits.
Oh, those are fantastic.
Yes, they are.
I love them. And they're haunted. I've seen ghosts there. Well,
that would be cool.
Psychically, I've seen apparitions there. Watching
the apparition of a woolly mammoth.
Well, the apparition of a woman gathering tar.
Are you sure those were apparitions and not just the LA locals wandering through the streets around the tar pit?
Yeah.
Well, these were, they were psychic hits and they were, so no, it wasn't a full, I shouldn't have used the word apparition and they weren't solid, so it wasn't an LA local. Yeah, but my sister and her family live in the LA area, so, and with COVID, I can't go down and visit.
I know.
No. LA is a tough place to visit too. I used to live down there, and there's not a lot of things that I want to go visit down there anymore. Now that we've got in and out, I'm kind of good.
Well, my sister lives in Rancho Cucamonga.
Oh yeah,
actually a real place, and so they're not downtown LA. They're out a bit, and there are some interesting places out that way. And I still haven't been to the big. Is it a Guggenheim Museum? The art museum, the big new one they built. Probably.
I don't know.
No, the Getty. It's Getty.
Oh, the Getty. That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't been there yet. I'd like to, but I go to visit my family. And Susie will take me around and see some interesting places. And
a lot of great places out there. If you can get out of the city and see some of the really cool, like, historical areas and stuff like that, it's definitely worth it.
Last time I was down there, we were able to go and watch the wildflower bloom down one of the canyons a ways.
Is it one of the super blooms after the big rain that came in?
Yeah. Yeah. We got there.
I always love that because they actually find flowers that they thought were extinct for a period of time that just come back.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was amazing. And we didn't go walking around. There were a lot of people and it was steep, and you didn't have to walk around to see things pretty. And I'm glad the next day, a guy and his dog both got bitten by rattlesnakes, just exactly where we'd been. And it's like, nah, I don't. I know Jay likes to tease them, but I don't like them.
Where I grew up down in California, it's called Whittier, and I went down there not too long ago. It was for my brother's bachelor party. He wanted to do this big Disney trip and all that stuff, and figured while I was down there, I wanted to take everybody to where it all kind of started for me, as far as like getting into the paranormal and everything. And it's a little area called Turnbull Canyon, and it was during a super bloom. It was right after a big, huge, like rainy season and everything. And anybody who knows Turnbull Canyon, it's just kind of, I mean, it's a nice canyon for what it is, real grassy. But for the most part, it's always usually really brown and dry. And it was the most colorful I've ever seen it there. It almost felt like I was in kind of like Napa Valley or something like that. It did not seem like Southern California at all. There was just too much green.
Well, that's where I got back from, was Napa Valley, but unfortunately it was all burnt and gone.
Yeah.
I shouldn't laugh, but
yeah.
Because that's right. I mean, you got your start, Casey, going around to places like sites of the Manson murders and things like that, didn't you?
Well, so man, I would like to go and check out, like Spawn Ranch and all, or what's left of Spawn Ranch and all that stuff. But no, I got started in 1993 after picking up a few books at a yard sale, and I was really big into like unsolved mysteries and In Search Of, and I just kind of wanted to see, if there was anything to the stories that I was reading about and the case studies I was reading about and what I was seeing on TV. So I just kind of started. My buddy, he got his license. He was a couple years older than me, so we got in his car and we just kind of started driving around to all these different sites. And Linda Vista Hospital was one of the first places, and at the time, I want to say Linda Vista closed down. I want to say in like early or mid 1993. So by the time I got there, it had been completely shut down. We trespassed, kind of broke in.
Which we don't do, folks.
I think the statute of limitations is up now, so I can say that kind of stuff. But we just we kind of roamed around in this abandoned hospital, and nothing. I didn't experience anything weird. And then I kind of went to little areas that I had been hearing about. The Knickerbocker Hotel in California, or in the Los Angeles area, and all of these little famous sites that you hear about, the Whaley House, and just kind of to cut my teeth and at the time I was like, I don't know what the hell I was doing. But I had Lloyd Auerbach's, I think it's Poltergeist, ESPs, and Hauntings, the Parapsychologist's Handbook. And what was cool about that book was he basically made paranormal research accessible to normal folks. And he did it in a way where he laid it all out, as far as the questions you ask the client, the questions you ask the entities. There's even, pages in the back that have a list of things that you would use if you brought in a deep trance medium or a psychic. So the building blocks were there, and that's kind of where I was able to cut my teeth. And I was just seeing a lot of the really cool areas in California, even though I wasn't experiencing anything that I had been seeing on TV. It was still fascinating enough to keep me going. And it wasn't until I got up here that I really got, more serious about it. And I started talking with Scott Riedel, who is my partner in crime at co-founding Oregon Paranormal. And that was the first time we actually had an organized group, and it wasn't just me going out to these places. And then, over the years, we just kind of refined the system and what worked, what didn't work. And, now we're here.
Fantastic. What a road.
It's crazy to think that I've been doing this for 27, almost 28 years now, or something like that.
Wow. Yeah. You guys
can see it in the beard, all the gray.
Yeah. Yeah. It was black until you met your first ghost.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, this is one of those kind of corny questions, but it's one that is always kind of interesting, and people like to know answers to. Have you guys ever had, while you've been investigating, an experience that was really rather frightening? Or just in a paranormal setting, whether it's an investigation or something else.
Yeah, I was going to say not while investigating. I have had my experiences. The youngest was actually when I was 13 years old. I was invited over to somebody's house to play with a Ouija board.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, I thought, this is all a bunch of bullshit, but hey, I'll come over anyway. And I watched them playing for a while, and the planchette was moving and doing things. And of course, I'm thinking someone's pushing it, someone's doing something. And after a while, I said, okay, I'll play, I'll try it. And I put my hand on the planchette, and after a while, it slowly started moving, and it would move kind of in broken English. And I still thought somebody was moving it. Now, at one point, it started getting a little bit aggressive with us, and we in turn got a little aggressive with whatever we were speaking to, even if it was ourselves. And we asked it a question that went to why you X? And we're thinking, why you X? And somebody said, why you ask? And it went to yes. And one of the kids has said, well, fuck you. Why do you ask? And the planchette started to move in a circle around the board. And it started to pick up speed, and it started moving faster and faster and faster. And I'm watching everybody's hands at this point, and everybody's hands are kind of losing the planchette. So I'm still not saying it was an entity or something communicating through us. Seeing a pattern, it's easy for everybody's psyche to say we're moving in a pattern. Let's keep that pattern. But it got faster and faster and faster, and then it went straight to the top of the board and straight down. The moment the planchette left the board, a light behind us, a light in the hallway, and a light in the kitchen blew their circuit. And it was pure fear, adrenaline rushing through your body. And of course, we all screamed and thought, oh my God. We had to go into the backyard and break a little luggage lock into the circuit breaker to flip the breakers back on. I do recognize that there's the possibility that all of us in the room, through our combined energy of believing we're communicating something, could have caused that circuit to break. It could have been timing. I don't know, but it scared me. So the next day I went out and bought my own Ouija board and, played with it and had my experiences moving beyond that. But it's still fascinating, the concept that even if we triggered those circuit breakers, that even if we caused the anomaly, that's still fascinating, and it's still something that I wanted to research. Of course, I didn't think about it like that until I began my paranormal research. I was still convinced for years that something caused those circuits to break. Whatever we were communicating with caused those circuits to break. For it to be an anomaly or a timing issue, it would have had to been so precise. Now, at the same time, I look back to when I was investigating, to where I was at the base of some stairs, and I heard something running down the stairs at me, and we had it on audio, and it scared me. I thought, dude, whatever it was coming right down the stairs, right at me. It was running at me. Now, when I played it back, it sounded like a very casual walk. It didn't sound like anything was running, which goes to show you that the human perception in a fight or flight situation can actually be distorted in your own mind. You can actually distort the occurrences of what happened to believe something in fear. So I don't know, looking back now to when I was 13, I can still remember the outside of this house, the inside, the layout, where the kitchen was, where the hallway was. That terrified me. So looking back, I don't know, but we weren't smart enough to record anything back then. I have no way of going back and viewing what happened. So I don't know.
And it's funny, my most profound experience happened when I was 13. And I've only told this story a handful of times. I think I've only told it actually twice. Once to Ben, and then a couple weeks ago when I was on Pete Orbea's show, I talked about it. And then after Pete's show, my mom called me and told me things that happened to her. So go back to 1993. I'm literally the next day we're moving to Oregon. So I had requested I wanted to stay in our house one last time before moving, and so my mom and my brother stayed with her boyfriend at the time, and I'm at the house, and I've got this little couch set up in the living room, and I've got my it was like a little 13 or 14-inch TV sitting on a cardboard box, and behind the couch was it was like a brick pony wall that separated the dining room from the living room. And then past the dining room, there was the kitchen, and then what used to be my old room. And the door that separated my room from like the kitchen area and the dining room was this old 1960s, like one of those accordion doors that are very loud when you open them. And I remember I'd been up pretty late. I'd just finished watching Conan on TV, and Conan O'Brien, not Conan the Barbarian. And
that would have been cooler, though.
What was that?
That would have been cooler.
That would have been way cooler.
Yeah.
And I shut everything down for the night, and I'm laying down, and about 15 minutes after I was, laying there, I start hearing the accordion door moving. And that's not something I would hear on a normal night in the house, unless for some reason my mom was coming in to wake me up for school or something like that. I was the only person in the house. That door should not have been moving. And so I just, it was one of those moments where you just kind of frozen, and you're trying to, it's late at night, you're tired. Maybe your mind's playing tricks on you, blah, blah, blah. About 10 minutes rolls by, and I can hear footsteps. And at this point in time, I'm, starting to get a little panicky. I'm a 13-year-old kid. The house wasn't in the best neighborhood at that point in time. And so I just tried to go to sleep. Next thing I know, I hear an exhale directly into my ear. It was just like a, and that's when the shitting bricks happened. So I jumped up and I turned all the lights on, and I'm kind of looking around. I look towards the kitchen and the dining room area, and the goddamn accordion door is halfway open, and there's nobody in the house except for me. I ended up sleeping with the lights on in the entire house the rest of the night. So fast forward to the end of Pete's show that night, like the minute Pete, signed off for the night, my phone starts ringing, and I'm still talking with Pete. We're kind of bantering back and forth about how the show went and everything. And I look, it's like, oh, it's my mom. I got to go. So I get on the phone with my mom, and she starts telling me, she's like, I can't believe you've never told me this story. I've never heard this story until tonight. And I was like, well, I don't really talk about it. It just wasn't something that I really thought about. And then she starts telling me all of these stories of how she would hear her name called when she was in the house. And, growing up in that house, because it used to be my grandparents' house, I would notice something really weird about my grandmother. She was a very, very little Spanish lady. And she would go around every night. Like if I was spending the night, I would take note that she would walk around the house, and she was, what I thought at the time, she was talking to herself. Well, I come to find out later on in life that she was holding a rosary, and she was going around and blessing each room in the house. And the reason she was doing that was because of an event that happened back when my mom was a kid, where her and my aunt and a friend of theirs had been playing with a Ouija board. They had some weird experiences. Thought that her brothers were messing with her. Turns out that they were in the other room watching TV with my grandfather at the time. And so my grandmother was convinced that there was something came through or whatnot. And then it opened up this whole slew of stories that happened to my grandmother. Like she was on a ladder in the garage getting down Christmas stuff one year. And this is long before I was even born. And my uncle had witnessed the ladder that she was on get torn out from under her. And to the point, like in California, and a lot of garages in California, that's all exposed rafters.
Right.
So it was a big thing. If you're a Californian, you're storing just tons of stuff up in the rafters. And that's where they stored all that stuff. So she was literally hanging on by one of the rafter 2x4s. There were just all of these other stories that coincided with weird events that took place in that house. They were experiences I never had until that night I was alone in the house, but it was profound enough that kind of helped, push me into paranormal research as well. And I thought it was very interesting that, my mom was able to back up my claims with experiences that she had never told me about. And then to hear from my aunts and my uncles about things that happened after their Ouija board experiment. So it's just, fascinating stuff.
It is.
And if I can real quick, Anna posted that comment, and she brings up a very good point in that they were doing an investigation and they were talking about something that really prompted some strong emotions, and they had some very odd spikes on the K2. And she wondered if that is actually what caused the energy spikes was their own emotions. And they've thought about testing it, but in doing that, it's a lot harder to get emotions when you're testing under situations when you know what you're trying to find out. So basically the observer experimentation,
right?
Which is very true. In fact, anybody who has the time, look up quantum physics, the slit experiment, observer. Anytime you're observing something, you're changing something. There's almost a hidden expectation of what you're going to be receiving. There are ways of doing it, Anna, and it's tough. Someone has to be the guinea pig who's unaware of what you're actually trying to accomplish. So make sure you have a good, solid friendship with whoever you're going to piss off or have strong emotions brought up. But there are ways of doing it, but it is a challenge.
I totally agree, Pete. I was talking to, just noticed Pete's comments. I think it was a predisposition to research for sure. And, talking about Pete, he had been on his show a couple weeks back, and they were talking about an experience Pete had. And I thought about it for some time and kind of came up with a plausible explanation of why he was getting some readings on a K2 meter during a ghost box session, I believe at the Walker Ames house. Because he said that anytime they felt like they were going to get a response, the K2 meter would light up, and then it would be followed by a response on the ghost box. And I think, and I could be totally wrong, but I think what they were experiencing was anytime the ghost box was coming through with something, you were hitting a higher frequency or a stronger frequency from whatever that radio station that was broadcasting possibly could have been the reason why your K2 meter was spiking the way it was just because of the fact that the radio towers were a little bit stronger on that particular radio station that was picking up those voices.
And you know what? Therein lies one of the major problems with paranormal investigation is that a large percentage, if not 99% of the populace that is investigating the paranormal already believes in hauntings and wants to find actual evidence of a consciousness after death. So we have already tainted the experiment before the experiment has even started.
Yeah, I don't know how many times, you see a post on Facebook and, we're going to this place. It's been haunted for so many years. I can't wait to see what we get out of it. And, setting up expectations like that before you've even conducted the investigation, before you've gone through the data, well, of course you're going to find something because you've already predisposed yourself, like Jay was saying, to the possibility that something's going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think in something like that, though, once you go through and analyze, wouldn't you be able to tell that, oh, I thought this was paranormal, but no, it's a steam whistle from that.
Not always.
It all depends on how thorough you are when you're looking for stuff. And, a perfect example, when we were doing that house in Dallas, there was this piece of audio, and I was so convinced that what we were hearing in this audio was a drawer closing. We listened to it over and over again. And like, sure enough, oh my God, that sounds like a drawer closing, because it was the same room that we were hearing the cloth rustling.
Mm-hmm.
Turns out when we enhanced the audio, cleaned it up a bit, what we were hearing was the sliding door on the van. But because the van was so far away, it gave the impression of a drawer like sliding into place.
Right.
So, I mean, it's
no matter how much you try and prepare for the possibility of something happening, there's always something beyond your reach that you didn't anticipate.
Yeah.
And everything bleeds into each other. So if you're investigating a house, how often do you set up microphones and video cameras outside? And then if you capture an anomaly outside, did you have the cameras pointing in all directions to catch what that anomaly was? There's just so many unknown variables during a solid investigation. It's almost impossible to catch everything that could potentially flaw an investigation.
And one really important aspect that we try to do on every single case study we work, and I'm going to use the old Wheeler for a perfect example. We've got a floor plan of the hotel level, and we've got a floor plan of the basement level where the clinic was and where the labs were and all that stuff. And what we do is every time we investigate anytime we do a full-scale investigation of the hotel, we've got laminated maps. And what we do is we'll take a dry erase marker and we write down on this laminated map exactly where we set up a piece of audio and the direction that microphone's sitting or pointing. Same with the cameras, because if we get any sort of anomalous anything, we want to be able to go back and try and recreate it the best we can. And the only way we can do that is if we can recreate the exact setup. Obviously, we can't recreate the environment and all that stuff. That's the variable that's tough across the board for every investigator. But if we can at least set up the equipment exactly the way it was set up originally, that might give us a bit of a clue as to why we got this anomaly. And that worked out when we were in Sumter, for example, when we were, I think we did a Sumter event about, I don't know, 8 or 9 years ago, when we were investigating the cemetery. Wow. And we had a DVR system set up, and we had this weird blip happen on one camera, and then another weird anomaly on another camera where the camera like moved, it tilted up and then back down. And upon further analysis, we found out on some handheld camera footage, we spotted one of our guests on that investigation had caught one of the wires that was running to one of our cameras with his foot. And it was just enough that he caused that camera to move, and it was enough of a jostle of the cable itself that it caused a weird electrical anomaly on another camera on another side of the cemetery. So even though what we thought was an event that was taking place in two separate areas turned out to be human caused. So there's so many things that you have to look at that are naturally caused before we can even start talking about the possibility of it being paranormal in nature.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I agree with you guys. And I live in a house that was built on an empty field. I mean, this was a field when I was a kid, and orchards were just a couple streets away, and people, when Dad started teaching, would find arrowheads here and that kind of thing. But even when my folks lived here, there was activity in the house, and I hear a lot of things, and then could it be coming from outside? Where do I look for this? Is this, then I start listening. Okay, is there a neighbor outside on the other side of that hedge at 3 a.m. that I'm hearing talking, or is it something else? Or right. Now the footsteps through the middle of the living room, that one's kind of hard to come across any other way. That 3 a.m. because they're in the middle of the living room, and right. And there's nobody coming outside, and all the rest of it. But it's you have to look, and you have to see what's around. And I remember in the old the Heathman Hotel,
Mm-hmm.
and taking pictures and stuff. A few of us, and I thought I had a really good, interesting picture with and something very paranormal in it. And Rocky looked at it for about half a second and said, "It's a reflection of that lamp that was right over there." And it's like, oh,
Damn it, Rocky!
you know, what? Just what I needed, that artist's eye, and I
Pete brought
laughed.
up, yeah. Pete brought up a good question. Have you noticed after an active investigation that when you investigate the next time and set the gear up exactly the same, do you garner as much evidence as you did before?
That's a great question.
That is a great question because in setting it up, first of all, you want to set up everything the same way it was set up before. But now you also want to have different equipment focusing on the environment around and behind and all that sort of stuff to see if there was an anomaly. The funny thing is I have never recreated any video or audio in anticipation of getting something without getting something either A, completely different, like the audio recording we got in the basement.
I was just going to use that as an example.
But on video, nothing ever has been able to recreate. But at the same time, how often do you walk into a restaurant? You may have your favorite seat, but how many times are you in different locations? So going back to investigate the same exact location may yield completely different results. But the one time we've investigated where we heard noises and clicking, and we went down to see if we could recreate the sound, is when we actually got a voice anomaly that was completely unexpected. So now if we go back down, we're now looking for the same voice, and we may end up with something completely different again. But then again, that's where I go back to you're constantly changing your level of monitoring to see if you can anticipate surrounding anomalies that are happening as well.
And what's great about that example of us, going back down and resetting everything up to try and figure out what the hell it was that we captured, though we caught the that weird voice anomaly that we weren't expecting, that wasn't part of the original reason we were down there. I was able to when I was at the hotel by myself when Jay was in Europe with Katie. I spent a good weekend there by myself, and I was down there and I was doing some investigating and everything, and I had equipment running, and I heard the same noise that we had captured that one night that we went down there to figure out what the hell was that. Well, I found out it was an old rusted pipe that as it's moving, it's rubbing up against another pipe, and it almost sounds like a doorknob being jiggled.
Oh. And you'd hear that all the way up on the top floor?
No. We had audio set up in the basement at the time.
Overnight.
Because a lot of times we'll set up a lot of static equipment, and we don't even actually interact with the environment. We just let the kind of the equipment do its job. It's taking readings, it's doing video, it's doing audio, and then we'll take that information later. Because again, the observer effect and introducing investigators into the location can hinder some of the results. So setting things up and letting it run static on occasion, I look at it kind of like, and it may be funny to say, but like you think of the movie Poltergeist when they bring in Dr. Lesh and the other parapsychologists to investigate, this haunting and figure out where Carol Ann is and everything. They're not running around the house with audio recorders asking questions and all this stuff. They're in a central location in the home with the equipment set up, and they're literally just sitting there monitoring. And that's essentially what it is that we do. I mean, it's a paranormal stakeout. We're there to observe the environment, to record any anomalous events, as well as record the environment and the changes in that environment. I don't feel or believe that we have to be part of the investigation 100% of the time.
Well, a lot of things aren't interactive. They're just going to happen, and they might not even know that you're there.
Well, especially if you're dealing with a haunting. If you're dealing with a haunting, I mean, that's just something that, plays over and over again like a recording. That could be, date driven or, whatnot. And those things, there's no telling when that kind of activity will pop up unless for some reason it happens every night at midnight or every full moon or whatever.
Right.
It's a crapshoot when you do these investigations, and that's another reason why we spend so much time on a case study, because you can't figure out a case study with one or two investigations or a trip to the library or the records department. I mean, it's a lot of work that goes into this, and
that's right.
Getting people to realize how much work goes into this, regardless of if you believe in it or not. It's a tremendous amount of background research that goes on that people don't know about.
Well, and just going through all the evidence and reviewing that can be so difficult. And for somebody like me, it's easy to lose my focus on it. And I mean, being in a house that has activity, my focus can be something else. And I'll hear this stuff going on in the background and not paying any attention to it, partly because it happens. You've got
and what you just said relays into, I see Randy asked if I, living in the hotel, do I have experiences all the time? And it's difficult to say. That kind of goes back to where I first talked about. When you live with something, the more you kind of have your blinders set and you kind of ignore everything that goes on around you because you're not going in fully set to experience everything going on around you. Things still happen, but for the most part, I personally believe it just goes ignored. What's fun is living in a location where numerous people can come in and stay at the hotel, and you get to hear their experiences. Mm-hmm. Some you can say, yeah, well, okay, that could be, a draft, this making a noise, that moving, whatever. But it's still fun to sit in an environment and hear a collection of other people's stories. Then you can start putting pieces together. Well, hey, it's interesting that people always talk about this one incident happening in this particular room, or people always hear this sound over in this area. That's what I enjoy.
And what the big difficult portion of doing this documentary is taking the information that's been collected over the years from varying guests and staff at the hotel, and trying to kind of find patterns in whether or not one review of a room weighed heavy on somebody else's experiences in the room. Because a lot of times we'll get people that say, oh yeah, I had this experience in this room. Well, that experience coincides with something that's on the internet that's false.
Or in the guest book, people will write their experience.
Yeah, it's very difficult. And a lot of people, when you go into a location, a lot of people, if they've been predisposed to the information that a place is haunted, then surely they're going to expect something to happen. And the hotel is a perfect example of that. And so it's very difficult to take that information and I don't know. We're cataloging it because it's information, but we kind of put it on the back burner because we know about all of the information that's out there already about the hotel. So we're trying to obviously we're coming at it as unbiased as we can. And looking at everything objectively, but it can be a very subjective experience for some people to go into any location. I mean, I could go and tell my kids, oh, we're going to a haunted location and blah blah blah, but it's McDonald's and it's not haunted. But I've planted a seed, so now and it's a good little experiment. It's like, okay, are they going to take that seed and run with it, or are they just going to kind of go, whatever, Dad?
In fact, that goes to Anna's question. I don't know if you saw Anna's comment on there about, do you find when people talk about experiences as haunted locations, you get varying experiences? For example, she says various members of the staff will talk about their experiences, but they're always kind of different. And I often relate that to exactly what you were talking about, Casey. If you are just over at somebody's house and all of a sudden you're like, where's my keys? I put my keys on the counter. They're not there anymore. Right. And later you realize, oh, I left it in my pocket, or, oh, I left them over there. But the second you go, dude, we're going into a haunted location. Where's my keys? Your first initial thought is something moved them. Something changed it that wasn't me.
Yeah.
And so that makes it very difficult too. And you're right, Casey, living in a place that's already rumored to be haunted, it can lead to a lot of things that are not paranormal, and is all just an interpretation of one viewer's perception.
Right. Michael brings up a good point too. He says perhaps when you live at a location, you do not have any unfamiliar predisposed expectations that taint your perception.
Yeah.
That can kind of go both ways, I guess. Because obviously, I mean, you live in a haunted location. You know what the claims are. You're not necessarily experiencing them all the time, but somebody else could come in and hear about the claims and experience everything at the same time. But I think also too, it's, you know, having a growing knowledge of the location over time. And I think that that's another example of why we do a long-term case study, because the client calls us in and, you know, we go in, we'll do an 8-hour or a 10-hour investigation. We're not going to learn the ins and outs of this house or this building in 10 hours. Spending time at the hotel, we know what noises the hotel makes naturally. So we can write those off. But somebody coming into the hotel for the first time and hears a noise on the roof automatically thinks, oh my God, I already know this place is haunted. So that could be a ghost. There's so many things you have to look at.
Yeah. I went on an investigation with you, and one of them, and part of what you were doing is just setting up the audio and video to run while nobody was in the house, in part to see if there's activity, but also in part to get a feel for the normal noises, the creaks and groans and plumbing and whatever that are going on in the house.
Yeah, and we usually run that equipment. So when we show up at a location, we set everything up, and then we leave the location for about an hour or two. And that kind of helps set the tone for the rest of the case, because it you know, as we leave the building and the equipment's rolling, everything that we've disturbed is now going to start settling, whether it's, you know, floorboards or whatnot.
Right.
And there's been times where noises that we captured during that silent moment when nobody was in the house, when played back to the client, they go, oh my God, I hear that all the time. Well, it's your house settling, or it's it's an unstrapped pipe moving around in your wall. So again, you know, it's looking at the natural explanations first before going down the paranormal rabbit hole, because that rabbit hole is very deep. And it shows that hole gets deeper and deeper every episode.
Yeah, and I mean, that's something that it's always interesting working with people that are new, that want the outdoor camera shot that's full of orbs to be full of entities, and find a way to respectfully kind of help them to see, well, let's look at some other.
Well, and respectfully is important, because there's not a paranormal investigator out there that hasn't fallen victim to taking their own photos and experiencing that same thing. And that level of excitement when you find that is, oh my gosh. Now, what's important is being open enough to hear the perception from those that have taken the time to study and research and understand, versus just going, nope, I got a ghost. I don't care what you say, I got a ghost. Yeah. So we've all been victim to it, and we've all experienced things that we thought were pretty amazing, only to learn through experience, training, education over the years that what we were experiencing was not paranormal at all.
Talk about experience. This was like maybe 5 years ago. We're at Manresa Castle, and we're having a conversation with Lloyd Auerbach, because he was one of the guests there, and this lady comes up to him. She's got this picture on her phone, and she's like, I took this, I've showed it to everybody, and everybody confirms what it is that's in the photo, and she shows it to him. She gives him this big long story, and he goes, yeah, it's a blurry photo.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he was just very blunt. And yeah, I mean, if your photo's blurry, then you got to throw it out. There's nothing there that can garner any sort of solid what we would want to call evidence. And two, you know, if you take a photo and you have to draw a circle around it, if you have to pinpoint to somebody where they're supposed to look to see whatever it is, you got to throw that out too.
Yeah.
Because you're guiding somebody into an interpretation is what you're doing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing when you're listening to audio and you say, oh, I can hear it and it says J. Do you hear it say J? And then they go, oh, yeah. Oh, again, you know, we're planting that seed. So, yeah.
And we're very susceptible. And with the photo, you know, shoot, mostly when people send me photos or whatever, I send them either to you guys, or I have a friend that's a professional photographer. You've all met him, Devin.
Yeah.
I send the photos to people who know the equipment better and have the technology skills I don't have to figure it out. But if you have this blurry thing here, well, what's everything else look like?
Right.
If the lamppost is blurry a little bit, the edges aren't quite sharp and straight or whatever, yeah, you've moved the camera, you've got a blurry picture. If you've only got one piece that's blurry and everything else is sharp, then you start asking other questions, including, well, was there a flash used? What was the lighting? Okay. Then you can start whittling it away and saying, oh, well, maybe this is something.
Right.
And anytime you have a flaw within your data, you have to throw it all out. A good example, you hear a voice, but then you hear a car door shut. The car door shut means, okay, you just introduced a possibility that someone was outside getting out of a car, they shut the door. Right. So you can't use that as possible credible evidence. You can tuck it away and say, remember, we heard that voice one time, and let's be cognizant of what was outside so we can set up microphones. But anytime, I was moving when I took this picture and everything is blurry, no matter what you find in that photo, you have to assume you're introducing pareidolia, whatever, you got to throw it out.
And you know, one thing a lot of people don't take into effect is, you know, when we're investigating, we generally investigate at night, not necessarily with the lights out, but we choose to investigate at night a lot of times because that's when most of the claims happen when we're being called in. And two, it's generally quieter outside. However, one thing that we have to realize is that sound travels further at night because of the cooler temperatures. And we had a situation where we were investigating this building that we thought we were in, a fairly quiet area and everything, but we had some people that were outside having a conversation on the other side of this complex. And the whole base of this building had, this big concrete slab. We could hear them, but it was very faint. But the vibration from their voice was traveling through the concrete to where the audio recorder had been set up at. And you'd swear that they were in the room with us when they were having their conversation. So there's a lot of things you have to take into effect when you're using equipment, whether it's cameras or audio equipment. And yeah, you have to be aware of everything that's going on outside too, because there are factors, especially, there have been times where we could hear a conversation from almost a mile down the road because, people were outside having fun. And because it's at night, it sounds like they're a lot closer than they really are.
Yeah, I know. Walker Ames is a good example because you get voices and stuff there fairly regularly, even at night. And it was a little easier to tell this year at the conference, the virtual conference, because, or just around town in general at the places we went, because there weren't people outside. It was easier.
How come?
I don't know. It's just very strange. But you just get in the habit. Okay, now I heard this. there anybody out here? Anybody out here? Okay, no. Yeah, somebody got into a car there, but it's just one person, and they're not talking to anybody. Or you can see the mouths that aren't moving, or whatever. You go through that whole process, and I personally like investigating with lights on, and often daytime, depending, because a lot of times I know places in Oregon City where they're really active during the day. Nobody's in them at night. Who knows what happens at night?
Well, and that's something the TV producers don't want you to know, is that activity happens all the time, not just at night. Pete, he said something. You have to be willing to break hearts, especially with orb photos. I think we should just start a new group called Heartbreakers Paranormal.
Yeah.
Oh,
just go around just shattering people's dreams.
Well, we could have Elvis as a theme song because, Jay, you live in a hotel. I mean,
Heartbreak Hotel.
Yeah, we can just put all the pieces together, and
yeah,
that could work.
I like it.
Oh yeah, Pete says I can't count how many times I've heard a voice in the Walker aims only to find somebody walking by outside or down the street.
That or the damn that outdoor radio or that outdoor music that plays 24. They don't shut it down at night. So sometimes you'll hear like a radio announcer or something pop through on a video clip, and you go, "Oh my god, I just got this dude talking," and then you find out, oh, it's the general store, and they've got their outdoor sound on.
Okay, but then there could be things like Coffee Rush here when you're out with the tour group at 11 o'clock at night, and you've been talking for 5 minutes, and all of a sudden the stereo turns on. And then you find out it's a Pandora system that can only be turned on by somebody in there turning it on, and it turns itself off, and nobody had been in the building.
I don't know. I have a hard time with those because every once in a while Alexa will kick on in our bedroom while we're watching like TV or something, or because what I found is sometimes it picks up, it'll pick up a sound and it'll associate it with a wake up, and then it just kind of kicks on.
But these are things that aren't connected to anything that you listen to, and it was actually before Alexa, and you have to, they have times when they unplug everything and the music continues.
It's funny. We both had Alexa and she didn't turn on.
Yeah, that's interesting. But this was, nothing there that could hear. It was all, you turn on a computer and you push a button, and
I see.
And and then I checked. I called the next day to make sure nobody was in the place. But then again, we had people were saying, "Oh, look, it has to be ghosts because there were curtains up at the top of some big windows moving." And I just said, "Well, I'm not sure where the heating and cooling system vents are. Let's don't count that yet." And I found out that's exactly where the vents were.
Yeah.
So you've got to play it all together and see. Now, guys, this has been fantastic, and time has flown. We're an hour and 38 minutes into this.
Yeah.
Do you want to continue a little bit, or do you want to wrap it up?
That's up to you.
I'm actually gonna have to wrap it up. We just got a medical call.
Okay.
So I'm going to have to wrap this up as we speak. So, but I do want to thank you.
I just got a medical call too. I gotta go.
Yeah. But thank you, William. Thank you for everybody that commented. Anna, Dorothy, Pete, Michael, Randy. It was good to see everybody. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, this was fun.
All right, we'll see you soon.
Okay, Jay. Good luck.
Bye. See you, dude.
And Casey, you can let people know to make sure how everybody can get a hold of you guys, and how to keep track of the projects and all the rest of it. Some of the
there's a lot of projects. We can be reached at OregonParanormal.com. Investigation requests, once they start happening again, people can reach us at haunted@OregonParanormal.com. They can reach us on Facebook at Oregon Paranormal. We've got the documentary film that we're working on, the Permanence, a Paranormal Case Study. They can follow along with the production on Facebook at I think it's just the Permanence Film, or if they type in the search Permanence, a Paranormal Case Study, it should pop up. We've got kind of a placeholder website right now called thepermanencefilm.com.
Okay.
And right now, originally we were supposed to have this film done by, I think, by this month. And because of COVID, it's really, put a wrench in things. So at this point, we're just gonna kind of continue to take our time, do it right, and put out the best product we can. Who knows when? Hopefully by next year maybe. But it's all dependent on safety and being able to gather and not get sick and all that stuff.
Right.
But in the meantime, it gives us time to kind of hone a lot of the other skills that we're trying to learn as we go with this whole filmmaking thing. Because, and like I said, we weren't filmmakers when we started. I can say we are now, and we've it's just been a hell of a learning curve on so many levels.
Well, I've looked at the trailers when you've had them and you put them together, and I have been thrilled about just how professional they are. It looks like you're watching anything out of Hollywood coming up on the website or something.
I appreciate that. That's just our determination. I can't tell you how many times we've had to reshoot something, especially our interviews is for a good example. We've shot our individual interviews 3 separate times because either the audio wasn't good, the lighting was terrible, or we just weren't comfortable being on camera at the time. And doing it over and over again, it's gotten a lot easier. It's becoming a little old hat. And we're able to set up shots a lot quicker now. And it's just getting comfortable with the equipment that we're working with, and the editing process and learning that whole. I mean, that's a whole other ball of wax. But I think we're getting there, and I think we've got some pretty fantastic footage so far, and there's more to come. And like I said, we're supposed to be filming some this either not this weekend, but next weekend or the weekend after. It all depends on the hotel schedule. And that's the other big kind of thorn right now is what people don't realize a lot of times when they ask us, oh, when's the film going to be out? Blah, blah, blah. Well, it's like, we're not just dealing with our work schedules and everything. We're dealing with the hotel schedule because we're filming in an operating hotel. So we've got to be very respectful to the guests and Katie who owns the place.
You can't do like the big TV shows do and just book out the hotel for a weekend and pay the hotel owner or something.
Even if we did that, I feel like we still wouldn't get everything we need. I mean, we were out there in November. Ben and I went out there and we reshot our interviews. We reshot Katie and Jay's interview, and then we got some B-roll for a couple portions of the interviews. But considering, I mean, if you looked at my sheet, all the shot lists and everything that I had laid out, we got to maybe a quarter of what I was hoping to get to in 3 days. So and it's very time consuming because we're not, you talk about the TV shows. Well, the TV shows have film crews. They've got production assistants and they've got grips and editors and all that stuff. And that's us. I mean, we're filming it ourselves. We're editing it ourselves. We're doing the audio ourselves. We're investigating we're wearing all the hats in this production. So
and you have day jobs.
It's going to take us a bit of time to, finally get this thing done. But, I'm hopeful that it's going to be a pretty solid project when it's done. It's going to look and feel like, something that a big time production house did.
Well, from what I've seen so far, I think it will. And knowing you guys and how much work you put into getting exactly what you're looking for and want. I'm not going to use the word perfectionist. That's the wrong kind of an idea. I have total confidence in the project. And
Perfectionist would be on some level accurate, especially when it comes to editing. Because man, there's sometimes I'll take two different shots and I'm trying to edit them together and to where they flow really nice. And sometimes what I've got in my head doesn't end up translating to what we've got in the editing bay, and it drives me nuts. And I'll end up spending a good 2 or 3 days on a single shot just so the edit is perfect.
Right.
But then there's other times when, and I've talked to the guys about this, where we have to, we're trying to approach it more on a cinematic level and less of like a TV look, but we do realize that the whole film can't be perfect. And there will be times where the lighting's not going to be perfect and whatnot, or the color grading on certain shots may not match. But we also have to realize that those cinematic elements, those are going to be matching, perfect. It's the investigative side of things that is going to be that real raw kind of in the moment. We bring the viewers in, and we want them to feel like they're part of this investigation, this case study.
Yeah, and so that will vary a bit.
Yeah. But I mean, it's been a hell of a ride so far, and I think we're on the right track.
I do too. I can't wait till it's done.
Me too.
Let's have a film festival in we'll get one in Leeds and we'll get one going in Edinburgh, and
that'd be pretty rad.
Some good places.
We were talking with the folks that run the McMinimans the paranormal events that they do, or that they did do before COVID. And we've talked about possibly doing a premiere at, I want to say, I think the Aladdin Theater, possibly. So, but that's so far down the road. But if we could do some premieres across the pond, that'd be pretty rad.
Yeah, I of course have to go with you as part of the arranger and fixer, and
of course.
Overall, yeah. Anything to be able to get back over. It's one of those places I always miss.
I've always wanted to go. I've yet to travel overseas. Out of the country for me is either going to Mexico or Canada, and I would love to check out Ireland, Scotland, England, and just check out all that history. There's so much of it. That's why I like going to the East Coast, because that's where most of our history starts.
That's where the
oldest of our history is.
Yeah,
is over there for sure.
Exactly.
But to see places like what Jay was saying that are like 5,000 years old, I mean, that would just be amazing.
Yeah, and there are places really that are actually older. I handled things. I handled a stone axe. I think was from 20 to 50,000 BC.
I can't even fathom that. That's insane.
Yeah, and there were other tools in there and that was something I was able to just pick up and hold in my hands.
And that's funny because I was totally geeking out when I went to Pennsylvania. Obviously we did like Gettysburg and all that stuff, and I totally geeked out because we were eating in a restaurant that was 300 years old. I'm sitting there going like, oh, it's the coolest thing. It's the oldest place I've ever been.
Yeah.
And, but then you think of like Europe and all that stuff, and our history is a drop in the pan to what they've got.
Well, when we go, we'll stay at one of my favorite hotels, the Old Bell in Malmesbury. It's the oldest purpose-built hotel in England, built in 1220 as a guest house for the Abbey.
Nice.
And it's haunted. I've actually seen the lady.
Better be.
Yeah, I've seen the apparition. More real than real. It was really quite amazing. And no, I hadn't been drinking. So, well, Casey, this has been fantastic.
I agree. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and we'll do it again sometime after everybody gets a chance to rest up from this one. And
Yeah, sure.
thank you, everybody who's written, Anna and Pete and Michael and Randy and Katie Brown, and I mean, all of you. It's great to get the love and support in the comments and questions. And this will be up on the Simply Spooky page, and then I'll also have it up on my YouTube channel before too long.
Awesome.
And great. I thank you all very much.